Test, test. Please be seated. The Commission's administrative meeting will come to order. For our meeting of today, November 30th, post-Thanksgiving 2022. Before we get started with the docket this morning, I'd just like to recognize the hard work and commitment of so many individuals in the state over the past 2 weeks with respect to explosions and incidents that have occurred both on our electric and natural gas distribution systems, including in Germantown, Maryland, with respect to the Washington gas explosion, in Pigtown just last week, with respect to the BG explosion at the intersection of Bayard and Sargent, and most recently in Commissioner Bubar's backyard, the incident with respect to the small private aircraft that flew into the high voltage transmission wires on Pepco's system. I recognize these events are hard to predict, but we have professionals at the ready with their go bags to go to these incident scenes. Not only the utilities, but all the first responders, including the fire departments, Montgomery County and Baltimore City, that have responded over the past 2 weeks at all odd hours. The aircraft incident was particularly tricky because of the inclement weather, the dark conditions, but Pepco was able to restore over 100,000 customers by about midnight when this incident happened, about 5 or 6 p.m. on Sunday evening. Most notably, I'd like to thank our engineering staff under the leadership of John Borkowski and John Clemenson. We have our engineers that were on scene of all of these incidents at these strange hours, and I'd just like to tip my hat to all the first responders that have had our customers' services restored in such short order. Commissioner Bubar.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I would also like to extend my thanks and appreciation for Pepco. It was amazing how fast things did come on. My neighbor, everybody was texting, and it was just like, 11:04, our electricity came back on, so it was really great. But also I'd like to extend thanks to Pepco for their coordination with the local emergency responders. I mean, just reading all the local blogs and Nextdoor and everything, I mean, they really, it was just a great integration and coordination, because that was just a very unique and scary and unusual event. But I think the roles and responsibilities were very clear, and everybody worked together. And I think hopefully the folks in the plane are safe. But just want to extend my thanks and appreciation to Pepco for that. I don't know if anybody's in the audience, but I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the U.S. men's national team for not giving me a heart attack yesterday.
We do have business today, and we'll move to the approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting on Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 3 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is a notification of name change from Achieve Energy Solutions, LLC. Item number 2 is a request from Sunwave USA Holdings, Inc. to cancel its electricity and gas supplier licenses. And item number 3 is a notification of name change from INTL FC Stone Financial, Inc.
Thank you. We'll begin with questionings on these items, beginning with Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just a quick question. I'm not sure who has item number 2, but I noticed there's an outstanding assessment of $155, and it's a small and de minimis amount, but have we checked to see if the company's willingness to pay that?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Charles Herbert on behalf of staff. Staff did reach out to the company via text message. The company is totally under, and their email system has been disabled. Up until the point where they filed, the contact was responsive to text messages, but when staff reached out about both the assessment as well as the RPS obligation, there was no response. Also did send an email to the email address just in case they would respond to that, but there hasn't been any response. We did try multiple times.
Fair enough. Our friends at the Central Collection Unit will take care of that item as they see fit. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I would move that with respect to item number 1, that we note the filing. with respect to item number 2, that we approve the cancellation request, and with respect to item number 3, that we note the change in trade name. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 4 on the administrative agenda is a joint request from TransSource Maryland LLC, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, and the Potomac Edison Company for additional CPCN and CPCN waiver extensions.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Austin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Roger Austin on behalf of staff. On October 28th, 2022, TransSource Maryland LLC, TransSource Maryland, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, BGE, and the Potomac Edison Company, PE, filed a joint request for additional extensions of previously extended construction commencement deadlines for CPCNs and CPCN waivers that were granted to each company in case numbers 9470 and 9471. The companies are still awaiting the resolution of pending federal court legislation challenging the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission's order denying TransSource Pennsylvania LLC's application for a CPCN to construct the portions of the IEC project located in Pennsylvania. The various portions of the IEC project and the PE Rebuild project are part of the larger Project 9A. No part of the Project 9A can proceed if any other part has not received the necessary regulatory approvals. The companies request additional extensions until December 31st, 2023 for each construction commencement deadline of the CPCNs and CPCN waivers that were granted to the companies. Staff concludes that Project 9A continues to address regional congestion issues and reliability needs and provides a 2.48 benefit to cost ratio that will continue to provide positive economic benefits in Maryland. While I will not cover this analysis, the project's procedural history or staff's conclusions regarding the applicant's reporting requirements in greater detail in my presentation, I'm available to answer any questions from the Commission on these matters. Staff recommends that the Commission grant an additional extension of the construction commencement deadline to December 31st, 2023 of the CPCN that was issued to TransSource Maryland to build a new 230 kV transmission line in Washington County as specified in case number 9471. An additional extension of the construction commencement deadlines to December 31st, 2023 of the 2 CPCN waivers that were issued to Baltimore Gas and Electric Company to add 2 new 230 kV transmission lines in 2 of its existing rights of way in Baltimore and Harford counties as specified in case number 9471. And an additional extension of the construction commencement deadline to December 31st, 2023 of the CPCN that was issued to the Potomac Edison Company to upgrade and rebuild an existing 138 kV line in Frederick and Washington counties as specified in case number 9470. Staff recommends that TransSource be required to provide updates regarding any material changes in the regulatory and PJM status for the IEC project going forward, and that BGE, PE, and TransSource continue to track any spending related to the Maryland portion of the IEC project and provide this spending to the Commission annually. OPC and PPRP filed comments after staff and are here to represent themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. At this time, we'll hear from the Power Plant Research Program.
Good morning, Commissioner. Sandra McLemore on behalf of the Power Plant Research Program. As we noted in our comments, we have no objection to the request, and we agree with the recommendations of staff. Today, I have also with me Mr. Kelly, Fred Kelly, with Power Plant Research Program, in the event that you have any questions for us.
Thank you, Ms. McLemore. We'll next hear from Maryland Office of People's Counsel.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. William Fields for the Office of People's Counsel. It appears that the congestion, the high costs, local high costs that have given rise to the market efficiency benefits of this line have now evolved into reliability concerns that PJM is currently evaluating and looking at various projects to deal with those reliability projects. And as we noted in our letter and attached the data response, Project 9A is one of the projects being considered by PJM to address those reliability concerns. As I'm sure the Commission is aware, PJM has removed Project 9A from its model, which means that PJM is no longer assuming that this project is going to be built. PJM hasn't identified any problems with it being built, but it's not assuming that it's going to be built. And so the concern that we have is that if PJM selects a different project from 9A to address these reliability concerns, that project could very well address the congestion and the market efficiency, address the same congestion that the Project 9A would address, and that would undermine the market efficiency benefits that are the basis for the project and for the approval of the project, and would also undermine any reliability benefits that the project was going to provide, because PJM's assuming it's not going to be built, so whatever project it approves is going to address all the reliability issues. So our recommendation stemming from that concern is that the Commission condition its approval of these extensions on a requirement that Transource file a report with this Commission after PJM has concluded its evaluation of these reliability projects, advise the Commission the results of that, and if Project 9A has been selected, then I don't think there's any issue with the project then is providing reliability benefits. I don't think there's any concern there. But if another project is selected, then Transource should be required to demonstrate that the market efficiency benefits will still be provided by this project, and that they haven't been, won't be undermined by this other project that PJM selects to deal with the reliability issues. So that's our concern and our recommendation to deal with it. We don't think that would put cause a problem for development of the project, provided it's still necessary and provides benefits to the ratepayers in Maryland. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. We'll hear from Transource in a minute to respond, but just a point of clarification. Does your request, is it nearly identical or identical to what Mr. Austin just stated? Because he stated that the Commission should direct Transource to provide updates regarding any material changes in the regulatory or PJM status for the IEC project. It sounds like you're asking for the same, but you use the word report.
I think it would be different, because I don't know that if PJM selects a different project for the reliability benefit, I don't think that would change the status of the 9A project for PJM. It might change the context of it, might change the circumstances, but I think from PJM's point of view, it's a market efficiency project. If it selects another project, it would still be a market efficiency project, wouldn't change the PJM status. So it probably depends on how you interpret what staff is asking. I think we're asking for something a little more specific, and also with the additional request that if another project is selected, that Transource demonstrate that market efficiency benefit is still going to be there.
Thank you. We'll have Transource respond Commissioner O'Donnell, do you have a question now?
I do. Let me just get clarification as well, Mr. Fields. Several times you noted that PJM was assuming that this project would not be built. But if Transource prevails in the courts, ultimately, it will be built, right?
That's, well, all else being equal, or if nothing else changes, that's true. What I meant by that was when PJM is doing its reliability analysis, as it looks 3 years, 5 years, 15 years out in the future, in its computer model of the transmission system, 9A is not there.
Right.
And they said that, well, because there's no project in this area, there's a reliability issue.
But I guess what I'm really asking at this state of the proceedings, having gone through the Pennsylvania PUC, the Maryland Public Service Commission, and now in the courts, PJM can't come behind that if the company prevails and veto the project, could they?
I don't know what PJM will do if it does a further analysis of the market efficiency benefits of the project after it decides what projects to address the reliability benefits.
All right.
If it does an analysis in the future that says the market efficiency benefits are no longer there, because this other project has will address the congestion, I don't know what PJM will do about that. But our recommendation, I think part of our thinking is that by conditioning your approval of these extensions, that would give the commission the opportunity to review in the future whether, what to do about this CPCN, what to do about this project. Because it's a $300 to $400 million expense at this point, and if it's not going to provide the market efficiency benefits, then I think it's worth considering whether that should really go forward.
Fair enough. Thank you for the clarification. It will have some bearing on questions I'm going to ask subsequent to that regarding costs to date. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just,
Commissioner Richard.
again, while you're still up, can you also talk a little bit more about the Northern Virginia data centers? You talk about that in your filing, but I think you discussed it as a driver for reliability issues. Is it also, were you considering them a driver for some of the market efficiency concerns as well? Or
No,
I'm just trying to understand how, if that is addressed, how that affects the 9A project.
I think the data centers in Northern Virginia are part of the driver for in developing the in the reliability issue developing, and that load might. I can't say for sure if that additional load has contributed to PJM's findings as far as the market efficiency benefits where it is right now. It very well could. I'm just not sure about that. But one way or the other, with that, PJM is anticipating that load and putting it into its planning, and therefore it's whatever project it selects from this reliability analysis is going to address the reliability concerns that include that additional load. Now, it's possible that a different reliability project, there could still be market efficiency benefits from 9A, but it's such a significant change in circumstances that I just don't think we can be confident that there would still be market efficiency benefits. But again, our recommendation is designed so that the commission could address that in the future and figure it out at that time.
Okay, and the data centers, this is something that wasn't really discussed. This is something, a new development, right, since we originally had our proceedings on the Transsource
that's right.
project. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fields, when will PJM make that determination? You said later this year or early
Well,
next year?
Yeah, that's all I have seen from PJM is December or January. That's what I've seen.
And if they do select a project, you would envision, and TransSource files the report that you're requesting, you would envision that this commission hold a separate hearing to review the change in status?
Yes. Now, again, if PJM selects 9A as a project to address a reliability problem, I'm not sure that a hearing would really be necessary, or maybe it would be something that would be quick. But if they select another project, then I think it's a more extensive discussion.
Thank you. We'll likely have more questions for you, Mr. Fields. We'll now turn to counsel for TransSource.
Thank you, Your Honors. Chris Gunderson on behalf of TransSource Maryland LLC. Also have here with me today Joseph Curran, co-counsel, and Chad Heitmeyer, who is Managing Director of Competitive Transmission Development for TransSource Maryland. First of all, I'll start off by saying I appreciate staff's work on this and recommendation, as well as PPRP's. As to OPC's recommendation, of course, we're happy to report to the Commission following PJM's designation of any projects to address the reliability issues in the most recent open window. As to OPC's concern about the continued need for the project, if a different project is selected in that open window, not 9A, we appreciate and understand that concern, that question. However, we think that it's already anticipated by the Commission's CPCN order in this case. Condition 19 of the order requires that if PJM determines that the project is no longer needed to address issues on the system, cancels the project, then the CPCN is void. And so under Mr. Fields' scenario, if project 9A is not selected in this reliability open window and a different project is, the 9A would continue to be in suspension as PJM has suspended it, given the permitting issues in Pennsylvania, and continue to be reevaluated on an annual basis as PJM has done over the past several years. If in that reevaluation of the project in the normal course, PJM determines that the other projects have supplanted the need for project 9A, then that would be PJM's decision, and that PJM would cancel the project, and condition 19 of the CPCN order would kick in. So we understand OPC's concern, but we think it's already addressed by the Commission's order. And happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Gunderson, since we approved the CPCN back in the summer of 2020, it appears that the cost-benefit ratio for this project, if constructed, has continued to increase. Is that right?
Yes, it has got it. It's currently 2.48 if you don't include sunk costs, or if sunk costs are not are included. Sorry, which is higher than it was at the time the Commission approved it. Yes.
I do recall at the very tail end of our multi-week or multi-month hearing, it felt like it extended for quite a while. The benefit cost ratio was actually moving down at the time. Was that my recollection?
It's correct, because the reconfiguration in light of the settlement did reduce the B2C ratio a little bit. So it was trending down for that reason, but then now it's back up.
And you said if sunk costs are excluded, it's even higher?
Correct.
Do you know about what
It
was
would-
that? I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, it's 3.64.
3.64. Okay. I recall Mr. Austin making me very nervous at the end of that hearing because the BC ratio was trending close to the 1.25 threshold there. Thank you. I'll turn to my colleagues for questions. Commissioner O'Donnell.
I wanted to talk about those sunk costs a little bit. As you may be aware, PJM doesn't have a great track record in Maryland with regard to proposing projects and then canceling them. Path, map, painful, costly, many tens of millions of dollars paid by ratepayers for something that's never been built and is not used and useful. And so I think in our previous order, we asked TransSource, and we ordered TransSource, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to minimize the costs until regulatory approvals are obtained. So, talk to me, since we're looking at over $15 million from TransSource, and I think over $8 million from BG&E in sunk costs here. Talk to me what the companies are doing to minimize those costs per our order.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm happy to turn it over to Mr. Heitmeyer, but I'll say briefly that when the Pennsylvania Commission issued its order, the company took action to make sure they were ready to go if that order gets reversed, and had been very cost efficient going forward from that point forward. But I'll have Mr. Heitmeyer explain.
And I'll just say this while Mr. Heimeyer's coming to the microphone, that unlike the previous consent item agenda where $155 outstanding assessment was de minimis, $15 million and $8 million in my book are not de minimis costs. So, Mr. Heimmeyer.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner, for the question, and good morning, everybody. So, TransSource definitely has taken actions to pare down as many of the costs as we can. Just to give a little color, we're still obligated to keep the project in a ready state, so we are in a position to execute if granted. Some of the ongoing costs that we still see today around the transformers, for example, we ordered, designed, procured those. They're currently in Spain. We're going to be paying for those to receive those and assemble them when they come on domestic soil. That's an ongoing expense. We also have structures, circuit breakers. We're paying for the maintenance and the storage of those facilities, and we're also paying for the options that we've already secured for the property needed for the project. So those are kind of some major buckets of the costs that we currently are spending on. But we've also taken actions to wind down costs as well per the direction.
What are those actions?
So if there's any no more engineering cost, any action that we were able to wind down, we did. But these particular projects are needed to keep them in that ready state.
What happens to those assets should the project be canceled?
Yeah, good question, Commissioner. And we would be obligated to take every action we can to either sell and reuse those to discount that from the total cost and abandonment. That's not the position we want to be into. We want to build projects. We want to build this project. We resubmitted, as Mr. Fields mentioned, this project in the reliability window. We still feel it's the most optimal solution, best for the customers in this area, and now we feel like it has a really good chance to win on just the reliability terms, on the reliability in the reliability window.
Yeah, I mean, having sat through the seemingly endless hearings on this case, I think in my mind, and I can only speak for myself, not the commission, of course, but I thought our order kind of curtailed the large outlays and procurements that you described as the major drivers of the sunk costs. I'm not sure that that's true, but I think that's what I thought at the time, that we would minimize expenditures in this arena until approvals were obtained. But I hear of major components, structures, transformers, land, other things, even though we're on existing right-of-ways for the most part, at least in Maryland. And I'm struggling with that because of my very bad experience in a previous position with the MAP project and my knowledge of the PATH project, and seemingly PJM's disregard for the ratepayers of the transmission owners in these projects. So let me ask staff, let me go to staff on this discussion line. What is staff doing to evaluate the sunk costs per our previous orders?
To evaluate the sunk cost.
Yeah, to make sure that they're complying with our order that they minimize costs.
We're not doing anything actively, but we do note that those costs have, once they've gotten past the design phase, I guess it was the design, and I guess they needed to procure certain components for the project. You can see there's been a constant, there hasn't been an increase in cost in the last several months. So,
All right, I just want to make sure someone's looking at the compliance with our previous order to minimize costs. Even though these rates are set by the FERC for transmission projects, we still have an obligation per our order in our CPCM process to our ratepayers to make sure that they're not going to be saddled with something that's never built, never used, and never useful. And I'm never gonna I'm never gonna let that go, because it's still painful to me to be paying for projects that PJM canceled. So I would hope that some staff is taking a serious look at the company's curtailment of costs and cost mitigation.
yeah, like I said, we do note that there has not been any significant increase over the last several months. The major cost has been, I guess it would have been the initial first few months when they began designing and procuring certain components.
Well, I can't order, but I could request maybe staff take another hard look at, put some bright light on those costs that exist right now.
And Commissioner, maybe I can explain a little bit more or elaborate on the timing of those costs. So these are long lead time assets. So these assets were purchased years ago. I mean, these are multi-million dollar transformers. So they were there's not like new expenses that we're taking. We're not purchasing new structures. We're not purchasing new transformers today. These are long lead time assets that were initiated before this reevaluation occurred.
How about legal costs?
Well, there are ongoing legal costs.
And I'm sure they're not insignificant. I'm sure they're large. But again, our ratepayers are going to pay those costs,
Yeah, I just
regardless of
wanted
whether
to
this is ever
clarify the
built.
timing. Yeah.
So I appreciate the company's efforts to answer my questions, but I do have a concern about whether or not we'll ever see any benefit from this project because of PJM's, my words, seemingly disregard of ginning these projects up to a fever pitch and then canceling them unceremoniously. But that's just my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I know for a fact the Venable attorneys in the room today are not taking this client on pro bono. The meter is running. Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you, Commissioner Dono. I actually had some similar questions. Mr. Austin, do you know the total sunk cost at this point when you look across all of the entities?
I only know, well, we do have the information for all three companies. On the top of my fingers, I have for BGE, it's 8.5 or 8.7 million at the end of October, and it's somewhere in the bug sheet. Yeah, 8.593 million for BGE through the end of October, and for PE 15.5 million through November 18th.
Right.
And we do have the cost for TransSource. I just don't have it in the bug sheet.
Okay, yeah, because I saw the 15.5 and the 8.8, but I wasn't sure if TransForce had additional cost
Yeah.
to that, so I wasn't clear on that. And on the, and I don't know who this question is for, but of the 15.5, it said the buck sheet's 5 million of that was on equipment and material. So if that's the case, what was the other 10 for? And if the equipment is long lead expensive items, I was just wondering why only 5 of it was for equipment and material.
Yeah, I would guess there's some other cost for design, and I am not sure if PE is here. Maybe they can help to identify where some of the other cost came from.
Okay. I think those are all my questions. Thank you. I don't know if, oh, is somebody from,
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. In response to your question, yes, the majority of that is actually internal, external labor for engineering, siting, environmental, and project management, including preliminary engineering needed in support of the CPCN and the environmental permits in Frederick and Washington counties. And I would also add regarding the equipment, the majority of that is actually, in the event the project would be canceled, it could be repurposed for other Potomac Edison projects. So that is a sunk cost right now, but at least that 5.1 million could be repurposed.
thank you. I appreciate that. We were actually at Potomac Edison yesterday, and they were telling us of the supply chain issues and getting equipment. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Additional questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Linton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. So I have questions for both OPC and for Transource. Since Transource is here, you'll get to go first. You noted in your response to OPC's suggestions about the structure of our motion that condition 19 could potentially address their concern. I'm curious, since this is a Transource in 9A was a economic benefit project, which was the first that PJM had initiated. So is there a review pending currently for that project?
As a market efficiency project?
Yes.
It was just completed in November, and that's when PJM determined that the benefit to cost ratio is now the 2.48 that we reported.
Okay. And so as a result of that, then they are not taking a second look, and as far as they're concerned, there's still an economic benefit to the project, separate from the reliability review that they're conducting currently.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, Mr. Fields. You noted, and good morning, you noted earlier that as part of PJM's reliability assessment, they were not including 9A as part of the review. Do you, aside from the fact that it obviously has not been built yet, they currently have, at least as of today, approval to do so by the Maryland Commission. Of course, it's still pending in Pennsylvania. But is that your understanding as to the reasons why it was removed or not considered as part of the reliability structure currently?
Yeah, my understanding is that they took it out of the model, is the way they say it, because of the uncertainty regarding the Pennsylvania litigation.
So, if we are to grant an extension beyond December of this year, just for everything related to 9A, I believe it all expires around the same time. Are we, and certainly Transource can chime in as an answer too, but do you see us influencing or modifying in any way the PJM review from a reliability perspective? Does this kind of throw a wrench into what they've already modeled moving forward? Or are they relying on the fact in their current model that these projects are going to expire? And so Pennsylvania is a question mark, but we know in December Maryland CPCN expires, and so that's why we won't include it.
No, I don't believe that's part of PJM's consideration of the situation. When they're doing their reliability analysis, looking 3 years, 5 years out in the future, they view it to be too uncertain because of the Pennsylvania denial that the project will actually get built. So they don't want to rely on that being there and get the false result that there are no reliability issues when there would be without the project. And I think that's the situation we're in. PJM, it's not tied to the construction deadlines here in Maryland, PJM's decision. It's tied to Pennsylvania has denied the project, and from a reliability basis, they don't want to assume that it's going to be built with that situation going on. So they assume it's not going to get built, and in that situation, they found reliability issues, and then they have a number of projects they're considering. They add those in to see how they impact the reliability issue, whether they resolve it or not, and then they look at the various, the cost of the different projects to see which one would be the most cost-effective way to deal with the problems. That's where PJM is. And if I could also respond a little bit to the question you asked, TransSource, PJM does reevaluate these market efficiency projects in the fall, and they just did it. And those are the numbers that we've heard. We don't know that PJM will, and I don't think we have any reason to think that they'll reevaluate it until next fall. And actually, I don't think we really have any reason to think that even if PJM sees the cost-benefit come down, whether we know that they'll actually cancel the project. So I think that's where Condition 19 in the order doesn't fully do the job in the situation we're in right now. For example, if the Pennsylvania litigation gets resolved this spring or this summer, my understanding is that there'll be motions filed in February. If that does get resolved and the project starts to go into construction phase, again, assuming that you extend these construction deadlines, the litigation in Pennsylvania gets resolved, they go into construction phase, the costs really ramp up. Once it's in construction phase, I don't think PJM's going to do another evaluation of the market efficiency benefits. That's in the past. That project's being built, and there's no reason for them to study that anymore. Our recommendation, part of it is to keep that issue open so that there'd be a request essentially from this commission that PJM take a look at that and provide the results and let this commission know whether there's still market efficiency benefits from the project. Again, if another project is chosen to address the reliability issues.
So
that's why we don't think that Condition 19 fully does the job here.
All right, I appreciate that, Mr. Fields. So help me to understand then what the timing would be for the type of report you're recommending. I mean, there's several moving parts here. There's obviously reliability review. There's that matters going on in Pennsylvania.
Right.
When's the best time for this report to be presented to the commission so that we minimize these sunk costs?
I think in February 1st, and if PJM for some reason hasn't, let me start over. PJM's usual schedule is for the board to approve reliability projects in February, middle of February. So I fully expect them to have reported out what they have found in their reliability analysis by mid-January. So if you set a date of February 1st, I think that would be reasonable. If for some reason the PJM process hadn't resolved itself by then that could be they could ask for an extension until it has been resolved. But I think that's a reasonable time frame, and at least that would be the first step in figuring out finding out and getting on the record here whether this Project 9A has been selected to address the reliability issue, and then the commission would have to move forward from there to figure out how it would get the information on the market efficiency benefits if another project is selected, how the commission would get the information on what the market efficiency benefits are at that point with that project being built.
So if we grant the extension, but we request this report, so what actions or options do we have at that point? The company already has the extension. Are you suggesting at that point that there's reason for us to, after review, pull the extension or pull the authority to build? Or
that's the second part of our recommendation, is that this extension is conditioned on not just the report, but evaluation of the market efficiency benefits in light of what is reported. So that might take additional, proceedings of some kind to figure that out. But the conditioning, I think you raise a good point. Putting that condition in now is important, because if you just grant the extensions, yes, the the project, again, once the Pennsylvania issues are resolved, it will just go into construction phase and start to get built. PJM's role, they'll consider their role done, and it'll go into construction, and then it'll go to FERC, for rates. But it'll be an approved market efficiency project, so it'll get the rates.
Mr. Fields, you said evaluation. Evaluation by who? The commission, or by PJM, or by OPC?
As far as evaluation of the market efficiency benefits, well, ultimately it would have to be, the commission would have to make a determination of whether they were still there. And our recommendation would be that the commission direct TransSource to make a request to PJM to do that evaluation on a expedited basis, as opposed to waiting until next fall.
So TransSource would do the evaluation.
TransSource would yes, they would do the initial evaluation for your consideration, and it would be, I would anticipate that they'd have to go through PJM to get that information.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Fields.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Richard.
Yeah, just Mr. Fields, just so I understand. So, if it's your understanding, we could put a condition on our extension. Is that the course of action OPC is recommending today?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And assuming that maybe another project is selected for the reliability concerns, wouldn't PJM be doing this additional review on the market efficiency in the fall of 2023?
It would be. I expect it to. Again, unless the project goes into a construction phase before that, in which case it might not. But if it's still, if the Pennsylvania litigation is still churning in the fall, I would expect them to do it again in the fall. But if the extensions have just been granted, I'm not sure where, there might be an issue of where your authority is to review the status of the CPCN.
Okay.
Other than a new construction deadline, and if they run up against that, but if they start construction, then that's no longer an issue for them.
Okay. So, I mean, would we have more confidence in a PJM review on the market efficiency benefits than just leaving it to the company? I guess I'm trying to figure out, these months potentially between the decision made by PJM on the reliability project and then making a determination whether 9A is still of value to the state as a market efficiency project. I mean, is there something we can just condition to just wait for that PJM review?
Well, if you condition them not to commence construction prior to that, it's kind of the opposite of a construction deadline, saying don't start construction until that review happens. Perhaps you could do it that way.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned about this risk to ratepayers at this point. If the PJM process is such that the potential is there, the risk is there that both projects, the possibility of a reliability project could be selected that obviates the need for the market efficiency project 9A, that somehow it would fall into the cracks in both projects we built anyway. And that's the risk I'm hearing from you today.
That's exactly it. Falling in the cracks of various regulatory, regimes. We've got PJM and their RTEP process. We've got the Maryland Commission CPCN process. We've got the federal courts, and we have FERC rates. But just falling in the cracks there, having a project built, even though its benefits, no longer are there for customers.
All right, thank you. Staff, do you have any comment on this? I mean, again, this risk that OPC seems to be identifying, and how we might address that as a commission, just to ensure that we don't have, these both projects going, the possibility, I guess, of another reliability project that again would negate the need for this market efficiency project 9A that we've already approved.
OPC's concerns sound legitimate in terms of how you frame it in your language. I would rather leave that to maybe staff counsel to help out.
I'm sorry.
OPC's concerns seem legitimate, but in terms of how you frame it in your language and in the recommendation, in your order, maybe staff counsel can help in, that's getting into legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prior to this discussion, I would have assumed that PJM in their approval process wouldn't approve two projects to solve the same situation. And we're assuming that their process would allow that to happen. I guess OPC's recommendation would be a check on that, although I would hate to have a condition that Transource cannot start construction until a second review happens, because that sort of negates what the purpose of the CPCN was for.
Okay. But that would only happen if PJM selects a different reliability project. I mean, that's what would trigger the concern, right? The risk.
Well,
Other than 9A.
My understanding is that OPC's recommendation is, regardless of that, it would be whenever the report comes out, we would have another hearing, and they would not be allowed to start construction until the end of that hearing, and the Commission's reevaluation of its prior decision, I guess.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, just so what I'm hearing is OPC accepts that if 9A is selected as the reliability project, then it pencils down. We move forward. Is that correct, Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So.
Yes, it depends on the wording of the new condition.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Please, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. First off, when PJM reviews reliability projects, so in this open window, they'll report out on which project they designate. They'll also have a discussion of congestion relief that those projects would involve with those projects. So I anticipate that it's all going to be wrapped together. But secondly, the federal litigation in Pennsylvania will not result, even if Transource wins that, will not result in an order that the project can go forward. That litigation only involves the first part of Pennsylvania's review, which is the need for the project. Pennsylvania still didn't get to the siting of the project, the environmental impacts. So if Project 9A is not selected in the reliability open window and they're successful in the federal litigation, it still needs to go back to Pennsylvania Commission to actually cite the project. So I don't anticipate a May start date of construction, certainly under that circumstances.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Mr. Chairman, I am concerned about the risk that's been identified by OPC, Mr. Fields, and it sounds like staff counsel hadn't considered that risk. Could we put this off a week and give staff counsel an opportunity to maybe come up with a motion that would, again, address this potential risk of having two projects being constructed despite 9A not being needed potentially?
I think it would be a dream situation if we had two shovel-ready projects for construction. Is that what staff counsel is asking for? Do you need more time to reevaluate this?
I didn't request more time.
Okay. Mr. Fields, I have a question for you. You are aware that the PSC has staff that keeps close tabs on the activities of PJM, correct?
Yes.
And any determination by the PJM board this commission would learn of relatively quickly, if not same day. if in the event the CPCN that was granted by this commission in 2020, there were, as you note, many conditions, several dozen, I believe. If there was a material change, TransSource would have to come back to the commission to notify us of that change, correct?
I think so, but I'm not, I don't think that 9A not being selected as a reliability project would in and of itself be a material change.
If 9A was not selected, I would agree that's not a material change. Your concern, though, is that if 9A and this other project are both selected, is that right?
No, it's if the other if some other project is selected and 9A is not selected as a reliability project, it would 9A would still be on the books, so to speak, at PJM as a market efficiency project, but a different project would be selected to address all of the reliability issues that have been addressed in this area. That's the concern, and so having having that other project and 9A could, ready to go and under construction would actually be a problem because the cost will be assigned to customers for 9A, and it might be redundant and not providing the market efficiency benefits that were the basis for it.
But that is the situation where there would be a material change on the basis of which this commission granted the CPCN, correct?
I'm not seeing where there would be.
The benefit would change substantially, is your argument, if another reliability project was chosen.
Well,
the benefit to Maryland ratepayers would be degraded by substantially,
well,
potentially.
I think there certainly would be an argument if PJM does do an evaluation, an additional market efficiency reevaluation in the fall, and determines that the cost benefit is no longer there, then we would certainly argue that would be a material change that the commission should consider.
Would the commission not sua sponte establish a hearing and call the parties before the panel if that were to occur? Do we need this February 1st report that you're requesting?
Well, I think by putting a condition on this extension, it makes it clear that the commission is conditioning, is looking at this situation and may in fact decide that the project no longer has the benefit, that there's been a material change, and take action with regard to the CPCN that's been granted.
And what would the material change be?
Well,
Selection of this other project?
No, the material change would be if this other project is selected and then there's a determination that by this commission that the market efficiency benefits are no longer there.
And that brings me back to Mr. Austin's statement verbatim that TransSource needs to provide us updates regarding any material changes. I feel like I'm in a loop here, but Mr. Gunderson, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we agree with you that, in fact, I believe your last extension order also required us to report any material changes, which we have done on a monthly basis for the past year, and that included the company resubmitting the project as a reliability project, included the annual reevaluation results of the market efficiency benefits of project by PJM. So yes, any material action that PJM undertakes that impacts the project, we are obligated to report on.
Mr. Dean, does staff council stand by its recommendation in the buck sheet?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. At this time, I'm going to propose a motion that we adopt staff council's recommendation. I recognize OPC's position has a nuance on this, but paired together with staff's recommendation that any material changes be brought to this commission, I think we'll be protecting ratepayers from any potential second project that may come along. I am not comfortable with reconditioning our CPCN that we granted 2.5 years ago. On top of that, we have condition 19 in the CPCN, which does provide additional protections for ratepayers in the event that a situation results where we would possibly be blessed with two projects that would both improve reliability and resilience of the grid. We'll be lucky if we have one project at the rate things are going. I've noted that in my 4.5 years here, we haven't developed a single inch of interstate transmission lines. And if this state is to ever reach its goals, we need a lot more transmission, and we need it now. We needed it 10 years ago. If there are no additional questions, Commissioner Bubar.
Yeah, before we vote on that, I don't have the CPCN in front of me. Can somebody read condition 19?
Mr.
I don't know if
Gunderson, do
people
you have
care.
that handy?
Yeah.
Yeah, condition 19 is titled Project Need, and it requires that if prior to construction, PJM determines to terminate PJM's designated entity agreement with TransSource for PJM Upgrade Project B2743, which is Project 9A, the CPCN shall be void.
Thank you.
I would move that we grant TransSource Maryland LLC an extension of the CPCN construction commencement deadline in case number 9471 for a period of 1 year to December 31st, 2023. That we grant Baltimore Gas and Electric Company an additional extension of the two CPCN waiver construction commencement deadlines in case number 9471 for 1 year to December 31st, 2023. I move that we grant the Potomac Edison Company additional extension of the CPCN construction commencement deadline in case number 9470 for 1 year to December 31st, 2023. I move that we direct TransSource Maryland LLC to provide updates regarding any material changes in the regulatory PJM status for the IEC project. And finally, I move that we direct BGE, Potomac Edison, and TransSource to continue to track any spending related to the Maryland portion of the IEC project and provide the spending to the Commission annually. I would also note that staff is to provide robust review of these filings when they are submitted. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to note, reiterate the final component of the motion, and that would include remaining in contact with PJM to make sure that any reviews that they need to conduct, that we're notified of them as quickly as we can be.
That is the understanding. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
No, I share OPC's concerns that we may not get this material information until too late, and I wish we could give it another week to not hastily move forward to see if there might be a good condition we could add to this extension. But anyway, that's the reason for my no vote.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 5 consists of revised tariff pages from Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc.
Good morning, Mr. Justy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. On October 31st, 2022, Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, SMECO, filed revised tariff pages to adjust its base standard offer service rates with a proposed effective date of January 1st, 2023. SMECO uses a purchased power cost adjustment, PPCA, calculated monthly to true up actual purchased power costs compared to the projected costs used to develop base SOS rates. When the PPCA exceeds 5% of the residential class base SOS rate on an absolute basis, the cooperative recalculates its SOS rates based on new projected costs and files with the Commission. In this case, SMECO's PPCA has been greater than 5% of the residential rate for the months of July, August, and September 2022. SMECO last updated its rates effective as of July 1st, 2022. SMECO's projected costs are up 8.07% overall, driven mainly by a 7.82% increase in energy costs. Additionally, recent rises in energy costs have caused SMECO to under-recover,
The cooperative has projected total under recovery balance now of approximately $18 million, with this filing reflecting an additional $10 million increase in the under recovery balance since the last rate increase effective July 2022. This represents a 127% change. Demand charges are expected to increase by 4 to 29% for the transmission and solar farm classes, while they are expected to decrease for the other commercial classes. Energy charges are generally increasing, with the greater increase relative to current rates occurring in the summer rates compared to the winter rates. Residential energy rates are expected to increase by 16.16% in the summer, from 8.17 cents to 9.49 cents per kilowatt hour. Winter rates are expected to increase by 4.72%, from 8.89 cents to 9.31 cents per kilowatt hour. Staff estimates this would represent a $15.49 monthly bill increase for the summer and a $5.17 monthly bill increase for the winter for an average customer. Staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed tariffs for filing with an effective date of January 1st, 2023. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Justy. Does the cooperative have anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Mark McDougall for Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. We have nothing to add. Thanks, staff, for their comments.
Thank you. We'll begin with questioning by the commissioners, beginning with Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask the cooperative, do you have the equivalent of a BSA or decoupling device in your collections?
Yes, Commissioner O'Donnell, we do.
I thought so. So how is it that with that you have a $10 million under collection?
The BSA applies to our distribution, our base rates.
Okay, so it doesn't apply to fuel costs, doesn't apply to your purchase power agreements, doesn't apply to any other variables other than your distribution rates?
That is correct.
All right, fair enough. I assume you get complaints at the co-op from time to time from your members about the rates increasing and the costs of getting electricity.
Certainly, upon occasion, we do. As you might suspect, Commissioner O'Donnell, we got quite a few comments back in the early part of the year, January, February, when our SOS rates increased as dramatically as they did. They dropped off significantly after the winter heating season, and we haven't seen any significant increase in those complaints since then.
And do your customer service folks who take those calls ever point to the Public Service Commission as the cause of the rate increases in the cooperative? In other words, well, the PSC ordered it.
I hope not.
I kind of get that feedback from time to time from some of my neighbors, and I would hope not as well. I would hope that that's not the case, but you may want to check on that, because I would hate the finger to be pointed. You request us to do what's fair and equitable. We seem to make sure that the cooperative is healthy, and then the finger gets pointed at us for the cause of the rate increases.
I will look into that as soon as I get back to the home office. I recognize, and everybody that I deal with on a regular basis recognizes that it's not the commission who causes these rate increases. And I will speak to the people in charge of our contact center and make sure that that's not communicated to the public.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just be glad they're saying don't call Tony O'Donnell a well-known commodity in Southern Maryland. Commissioner Bubar.
I was just wondering if you had, this is for SMECO, any perspective, do you expect any impacts to arrearages with these increases?
I've spoken with our billing folks, and this particular increase for the winter is about overall about 9.1%. For the winter, it's about 4.7%. As I think Mr. Hanson pointed out, it's about a $5 increase per month on the bill. I'm not expecting an increase in arrearages as a result. It certainly might happen, but it's not something that I really thought would happen in any significant way.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of January 1st, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 6 is a CPCN waiver request from the Potomac Edison Company.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Lowe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Chris Fellow on behalf of staff. On October 19, 2022, Potomac Edison filed a request to the Commission for a waiver of the requirement to obtain a CPCN as set forth in the Public Utilities Article Section 7-207B4I. The request includes the needed work to build a transmission tap line connecting the existing Dupes Estaco 230 kV line to the state substation, and to replace 3 deteriorated structures on the existing line in Frederick, Maryland. PUA Section 7-207 requires an electric company to obtain a CPCN prior to commencing construction of an overhead transmission line that is designed to carry a voltage in excess of 69 kV. However, exceptions are outlined within the article. PUA further states that the Commission shall waive the CPCN requirement should it find that construction does not require the company to obtain new property or rights of way through eminent domain or require larger and higher structures to accommodate increased voltage or larger conductors. The proposed transmission tap line project allows Potomac Edison to energize the state substation that is being built at the site of the old Estaco substation. The state substation will serve a major load being brought into the site by Quantum Lupo, which plans to develop an industrial park comprising data center data centers around the area. Potomac Edison proposed to install approximately 415-foot long transmission tap line from the existing structure to the new state substation. In addition, 3 existing wood structures located outside the existing Duke substation will be replaced due to deteriorating from the woodpecker damage. According to the company, the height of the replacement structures will remain the same, ranging from 61 feet to 75 feet. As part of the tap line project, Potomac Edison will also replace 3 existing substation dead-end structures. All work will be performed within existing rights of way, and there will be no increase in voltage or the size of any conductor. Based on staff's review of the filing and discovery responses from Potomac Edison, staff recommends that the Commission grant Potomac Edison's request for the waiver of the CPCN requirement under PUA Section 7-207B4I to permit the company to build a tap line from the existing Dupes Estaco 230 kV line to the state substation and to replace 3 deteriorated structures on the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. We did receive a letter from PPRP stating that they reviewed the project and they do not oppose the request. Unless Ms. McLemore has something more to say, we'll move on to the utility. Good morning.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Robin Leone on behalf of the Potomac Edison Company. I'm accompanied by Travis Turner, an engineer with Powerline Siting. We're available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Leone. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you give me some assurance that this project has nothing at all, either tangentially or in preparation for or in anticipation of the completion of IEC West?
It has nothing, as far as I'm aware, no.
Okay, I mean, we have seen other projects that were anticipatory of IEC West come in for waivers of the CPCN process from your company, so it's, and I want the company to be on the record saying it's not anticipatory work and building those sunk costs.
This is driven solely by the customer and their activity to redevelop the East Elko site into a usable data center, so this is solely related to their power needs.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. The notice that the company provided to the community and to elected officials was in October of 2022. As we all know, a lot of our elected officials were very busy during that time, seeing as though it's about a month before Election Day. So has there been any response since that time? Has anybody reached out to the company regarding this project?
I am not aware of that. I can certainly check with our public affairs folks to make sure, but I'm not aware of anybody reaching out specifically in response to the notice. But we do, our public affairs folks, are in regular contact, so I can certainly find out if anybody has discussed it.
Has the staff received anything or heard anything from anyone?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, I would move that we grant the company's request for a waiver of the CPCN requirement under Public Utilities Article Section 7-207B4I to permit the company to build a tap line from the existing Dow's East Lauco. How do you pronounce that? East Lauco?
East Alco.
East Alco 230 kV line to the Sage substation and to replace 3 deteriorated structures on that line. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved with nothing else on today's agenda. This meeting is adjourned.